everybody. On 125th, got to go to emergency call in Long Island City. Oh, it's cold out today. It feels like winter. It's not supposed to be winter. It's supposed to be spring. But I got my heater grips on full. It's just one of those days. Yeah, I was hoping to get more comments from other riders, like why you ride an Enduro, but I guess, I'm not that big on YouTube, so and most of my videos are unedited. They're just, I just throw them up there, so people can see real unedited views of New York City. And the other thing is I'm working full time, so I don't actually have time to do, when I get home, I have to do remote stuff for customers. Like tonight I have to do some 365 accounts and got some licensing renewals on Microsoft 365, so I got to do 3 people tonight for the company that I take care of, the nonprofit. I got to handle their 365 licensing for Excel, or Office 365 I should say, correction, because everything is paid for as subscription based now. No more buying Office. For years now it's been like that. But anyway, that's what takes a lot of my time at night, doing remote programming. I also do voice servers, so the voice IP phones and things like that for a customer, a big law firm, a bunch of them that I handle. So when they add new users, I gotta add them, and they have voicemail to email forwarding and things like that. So I have to do things like that. That's why I do most of my videos are unedited. They're just I just throw them up on, as I go. Hopefully it gives like nice unedited views of driving in New York, which is cool. But it is nice when you do like the editing, so I'm going to start doing that eventually. I'm just looking for a good video editor to use. I know the YouTube free one is decent for doing like basic stuff. I'm going to start messing with it so I can give you guys some funny stuff, when there's a nasty driver pop up, funny things to make it cool to watch. But I also want to get some comments from people. Hopefully I can hit up some other Enduro riders, to see what they think of what bike they like, It's amazing how technology changes so quickly, though, because now this 2018 KLR is considered an old bike, basically. Not really, but the technology was already old on it. It's carbureted, has no anti-lock. So it's an old school bike, and it already was old school. And now that the new KLR is out, and then the Tenere 700 is out. But I have to tell you though, I have not ridden the Tenere 700, but it looks nice, a parallel twin. Really nice bike. If I lived in California, that would be the bike I would want. I would spend the extra money to get it, because when you get on the freeway, that parallel twin is really going to help you out. Not that the KLR can't handle highway. I mean, when I jump on the highway, this thing does 90, no problem. But there's a considerable amount of vibration you can feel. Once you get used to it on the KLR, it's not a big deal. You know what the bike can do. You can cruise 90 miles an hour all day long if you want to. 80 would be a little better. But anyway, getting back to my point, in New York City, I would absolutely, if I had a choice between Tenere 700 and KLR, I would take the KLR hands down, because the Tenere is more money, probably a little heavier than the 2018 KLR, and it's got a lot of electronics. And believe it or not, when I tell you, I can tell you firsthand from driving a bike here, I had a BMW F800 in New York City that I used, and it failed after 1 year. Just one, not even, it didn't even make it a year of driving. I moved from Los Angeles, and I was commuting on the bike every day up to Santa Barbara. And even before I moved, I started noticing the bike was eating oil. Now, I don't know if there were quality issues with the F800 when I bought it. I bought it in, let's see, what year was that? I'm trying to remember now. That was a 2011. Yeah, 2011 BMW F800. Now, I don't know. I heard there were quality issues with the bike then. But what I can tell you is that as soon as I arrived in New York, I was using the F800 to do service calls, just like I am on this KLR. And it couldn't have been a couple of weeks that the front wheel was very badly bent, the front rim, which I found to be like insane. I was like, what the hell? I mean, this is supposed to be an adventure bike, so anything you encounter in adventure riding would be just about the same as you would encounter here in the city, I would think. I mean, I'm not an adventure rider, and I don't claim to be. I've never ridden, you know, through South America and through the Tat Trail. I've never done any of that stuff. I just ride in New York City and LA. That's really what my riding been. That's been my riding. I try not to talk too loud when people are coming by because they think you're insane. But then again, people do that on their phones and nobody cares. So yeah, the Tenere 700, although much better quality, much more quality bike than the F800, it does have a lot of electronics. And electronics here in New York City, unfortunately, if you ride a bike all year round, will be your Achilles heel. You know, that's going to be all the problems you're going to have. It's going to be electronics, because any of the electronics on the KLR, they fail during winter. Like, little things go wrong. So what I do is I like the kickstand switch went out, but I figured that would, you know, if it was exposed to salt on the road. Different things. It's all part of, you know, what you get exposed to in New York. But, you know, I'd have to try that Tenere 700 out to see how it would perform in New York winters, because they're really rough. There's a lot of stuff in the road, a lot of salt. It's extremely cold, vast temperature differences. It could, you know, it could be a big problem. I do like the setup on the Tenere 700 with the 18-inch wheel on the rear, 21 on the front. A nice setup for ordering tires, because you can get aggressive tires for that. It's a tube type. That could be a problem for you. Tube type would be rough, and you know, on a bike like that. But you know, there's a lot of good things about the Tenere 700, but being the parallel twin, I would love that in California. But like I said, I honestly feel putting up a KLR, you know, a Gen 2 KLR and a Tenere 700, people would be like, you're insane. You would rather have a Gen 2 KLR than a 10 or a 700, and I'd say in New York, and I'd say absolutely. Now, if I stored the bike during winters, that would be different. That would be totally different if I stored the bike. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys I'm going to Long Island City. Yeah, so I'm going to actually say, I'm going to call it and say I'd rather, in New York, I'd much rather have a 10 or a 700. Now, that F800, like I said, lasted a year. The rims started bending. I noticed the temperature changes were really rough on the bike. Like, it ran like shit when it started. And I took good care of that bike. I really did. I changed the oil religiously. I always did what I had to do to keep that bike well maintained, the chain, everything. But with the bent rims, and then the bike started burning oil like in a ridiculous rate, and that actually started before, before I moved from California. So I took it to BMW, and they said there was no problem. It was eating oil, and it was eating it enough where I had to put oil. I was starting to add oil, so I was like, oh boy, that's not good. And even these KLRs have had that problem. KLRs have had eating oil problems before too. Well, I gotta get around this truck. Yeah, I had to get around that truck because it looked like it was going to be a problem. I could see already, because I was, coming off the ramp for the bridge, and I was stuck in the back there, and I don't like that, to be stuck on the back end. Well, anyway, getting back to the F800, it was a total failure. I had to go insurance on the bike because when I took the bike to the dealer, they said nothing's covered. We called BMW headquarters. They said nothing's covered. Called a lot of different phone numbers and all that, and they said it's all not covered. It's abuse to the bike. They said, New York, whatever it is that happened to the bike, it's all your fault. And sent pictures and things, and it was just a waste of time. And I hear BMW has like a big class action lawsuit on their cars now, recently. So on the 3 Series and all that. So their quality is a problem sometimes, because they don't produce everything in Germany. The F800, actually, I found out later after buying it, and this is years ago now. That could have all changed now. The quality on the bike could be good now. I don't know. But what I can tell you is this KLR doesn't burn oil, and it doesn't give me a lick of trouble at all. I mean, all I do is change the oil on it. Now, when it comes to valve adjustment, it is a hassle on this bike because you got to use valve shims. So, anyway, I'm here now. I guess I'm gonna park here. All right, everybody. I'll see you on the next one.